Welcome, everyone, to an episode of the Strength and Knowledge Podcast. I am very, very excited to bring to you today this special guest, Dylan Gutheil, and hopefully I didn't butcher it there. I was practicing a little bit before we jumped on, all right? And he's the co-owner of Flight Performance. I became acquainted with him because, honestly, we're bringing a course for the R2B Academy up there. And overall, just really enjoyed speaking with him, getting to know him and his staff. And I'm really excited to share a couple things that I think him and his team do extremely well with you all today. So welcome, Dylan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So let's dive right into it, right? This has been a crazy year, 2020, something we'll never forget. And I think when it comes down to thinking about what allows people and organizations to be able to do well, or at least stay above water throughout a pandemic, I come immediately to leadership and the overall company culture. I know that you all have been in existence for about 4 years now. What are some things that you've really tried to make very, very well known and a mainstay within your company that you think helped you and your team?
And you're speaking just generally here or throughout COVID and all that stuff?
Things more like building blocks that allowed you to hit COVID with a little bit more of a smooth tempo instead of hitting the brakes.
Yeah, I mean, I think me and Jared's my co-owner. He my business partner. Me and him have always the mindset has always been that we want to take care of our clients 100%. That's first and foremost. That's been our priority. That's why we opened our facility. So that's always going to be at the forefront. And then, now once we have a good amount of employees, it's like we have to take care of our employees and then we have to take care of our clients. And so, that's always been our priority. So when it comes to continuing ed, when it comes to how we communicate, everything, it's going to be with this big picture of how can we deliver the best product? Are we doing best by them? From a standard of training and from a standard of environment and how we treat everybody. So then, going into COVID, you're faced with this tough situation of, you're part of these people's daily lives, you're part of their routine, and you're part of keeping them healthy. And then all of a sudden it's taken away from them. And for us, obviously, they're paying memberships and you're going to close down. So it's like, oh, that's all our whole business model is based on continuing to add people to these memberships. And then all of a sudden, okay, that's gone. So the way we handled it was, all right, first and foremost, me and Jared looked at each other like, well, it's been
We're
good.
doing this. All right.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. But, we sort of sent out a message and said to people, we will do everything we can to give you as good of a product as we can give you while you being at home, for us being closed. We're going to listen to what's safe, but right now, we will do whatever it can, reach out to us. And understand if you want us to cancel your membership, you want us to freeze it, whatever, we totally understand, but also understand we're a small business and we were relying on that, the memberships for survival. So that was a thing. So then me and Jared kind of sat down and just decided, figured out, okay, what can we do to make this so we're not just dead in the water and we're not just kind of sending them home with no help, We basically decided that every day we were going to make graded workouts. So we would put out 4 workouts a day with YouTube links to it. And we'd send it out in an email every single day. And there would basically be different levels. So there'd be like a strength workout. There would be a kind of a HIIT-ish workout, a mobility kind of, little circuit. And then there would be some like active rest. And each time with each workout, there'd be kind of levels to it where we would have progressions for each exercise at some level that if you can't do this, do this. If this is too easy, do this, and kind of working through. And along with that, we would run 2 Zoom workouts a day. That would be kind of one in the afternoon and then one in the evening. That would be more of just kind of a boot camp style, best we can do, but at least with, enough that you can watch them and give some individualization, some individual coaching to each person based on what they can, what their abilities are. Because sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think if I peel that back a little bit, and I just speak more like business concept wise, I mean, it sounds like almost like a shareholder mindset is not something you are thinking about. You're more thinking about stakeholders, like your stakeholders in your ecosystem or the community that you created is obviously your team and your people. And you went into this mindset of, okay, how do I make sure that I am keeping everybody safe, right? We're following the rules. We're doing everything that we can, tons of uncertainty. What are people telling us to do? I'm not going to get into the, what should have happened with regards to shutting down and this, that, and the other. But obviously you do what you have to do, and then you're finding a way to stay connected. And I think that the only way that I can really draw a parallel for that a little bit is we went immediately into like virtual visits or tele-rehab, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Definitely had some challenges there. It's new, right? Everything from like setting your computer space so, you've got a decent area to move, or positioning your camera, making sure that you don't have any audio issues, and then eventually tweaking it to the point where you've got, a good flow. There's things that you're, doing in the beginning. Maybe you're close to a whiteboard, or you're bringing a whiteboard to the session, or you're referencing YouTube links that you already have YouTube up when you're hitting. So for you all and what you were doing, I mean, was there anything that you really noticed throughout the process of delivering more of that video-oriented service that really stood out to you that you really feel like made a difference?
I mean, I think it was like, so we actually would the staff would meet here and there, and or actually every week, and we would basically just talk about what ways can we, refine what we're doing. So it's like, yeah, we're doing these Zoom classes, and it's kind of in some level kind of a nightmare from a perspective of really quality training, because, we have an athlete, we're trying to deliver one, whole class, right? Like a boot camp class. And there's going to be athletes in there, and there's going to be like a 70-year-old woman potentially. So it's like, how do you deliver a really good class that's going to, meet the demands of what each person needs? So it's definitely pretty challenging to write that program and have an idea of how you're going to progress for certain people with everything you do, So
especially when you don't know like what equipment they have, right?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah,
you're like, what do you have at home?
Nothing. They could have a full line of dumbbells and everything, So
yeah,
I mean, super, super challenging. So that's kind of what we would be talking about throughout, is just how can you be super prepared for everything that's going to happen, depending on who's there, depending on what equipment they have, and depending on like, how hard, what injuries they have. That's the other thing we're talking about. Like either, people have all these certain issues that you have to know that, oh, this person shouldn't be doing this person should be doing that. So you have to really know all the clientele really well. So that's kind of something that we're discussing throughout. So, I mean, yeah, we ran into some challenges with making those workouts actually like beneficial and fun for everybody. But we found a way to kind of get better as we went. And it really just comes down to preparation. Like it's you got to be really ready for everything that might occur. And that we would be discussing throughout kind of what things are happening that aren't helping out making those classes so good. I mean, the other thing we did too is like, there are a lot of people that just don't even like that. They don't want to be in a group boot camp class from home when they're used to doing like some real strength training or something. Some like almost say more performance, more powerlifting, whatever they're doing, it's like some heavy lifts and stuff. And then it's like, all right, now they're in this boot camp at home. Like it's just not their thing. So for anyone who wasn't into whatever we were putting out like that, we were like, we are taking membership money and they're not getting the product that they were getting before, So we were like, we will do whatever it takes as far as from a personalization standpoint. Reach out to us if you need a personal program for what you need to be, for what you like to do. Anytime, reach out and we will send that over, because that's we want you guys to be getting whatever you can out of it. We just figure that this might be a good way for some accountability and for some, adding some fun and keeping the community together to kind of have a class-oriented sort of style stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the community and the connectivity of the community being so much more important than anything like monetary. Like, I mean, we had certain situations where like people are losing their jobs and like, they're like, hey, how can I continue to be here? Like, I need this place. Like, this is sometimes like, I felt like we were a mental health clinic for people, like people would come in and they would just unload, like they unload and you'd like, we just talked for like 20 minutes. We need to go it's time, like we need to go move around a little bit, So it was something that I just recognized that people enjoyed the routine. They enjoyed you being a part of their lives. And they just wanted to feel like they could still do things. And I've brought this up multiple times, but like when you're not sure if something's like super, super bad and it's going to affect you negatively and potentially compromise your ability to live, you take it down a couple notches on Maslow's hierarchy, you're not focused on self-fulfillment. You're thinking about, okay, where's my shelter? How am I going to get food? And how am I going to make sure that I'm staying, healthy? So, that was kind of that just obviously very, very like almost call it like whitewater. You're just tumbling around, just trying to figure out where the heck the place to breathe was. But now, we're in a little bit of a better situation, I think, collectively. I'm not quite 100% sure of what's going on with regards to Boston restrictions on this, that, and the other. We are operating in 2 separate counties. There's different rules in different counties. But at least being in a position where we are more similar to what we were before than the first lockdown moment. What are you noticing about that time period where you're doing things on Zoom or you're sending workouts or you're catching up with people one-on-one that is carrying into a better product now and potentially for the future of your business?
I mean, it's interesting. I think we always had a really good community. I do think that holding that together and having everybody be able to actually see each other on these Zoom class. I mean, the class might end and a lot of these people are just, talking for another 20 minutes. We're like, all right, like we got to go. Like,
turn into happy hour. Here we go.
Yeah.
Right?
That's part of it. It's like, they just, we want these people to see each other. So that did definitely carry through the fact that we stayed a part of their lives, throughout. I think it just meant a lot to a lot of people that we were that active as far as reaching out to people and making sure everyone, because there were also a lot of people that weren't on the Zoom class in the groups. They weren't doing the daily workouts. They weren't kind of checking in on it and they didn't reach out to us. So then it's like, we take that as our responsibility. Like we have to reach out to them and make sure, are you doing a workout? Like, do you need something? Do you need some help? Some support. Some people just don't have that kind of personality to reach out. But I think that kind of community, it carried through. But I think more than anything else, the time, weirdly enough, it gave us, especially me and Jared, some time to evaluate what we were doing in general with our business and with our training concepts and I know you understand it, running a business. We're kind of, and me and Jared still coach a lot, so it's just a million things are going. You're kind of head down, just trying to make sure everything works. And so there can be times where you can be a little bit less retrospective and really like looking at what you're doing, stepping back, being a little bit more objective and making sure that you're running things the way you want to run them. So I think if any, the one positive out of that time where we were shut down was that it did give us some time to slow down and reevaluate. And I think it just opened our eyes to some ways that we were maybe letting our biases kind of creep in with some of our training concepts and just definitely look at our business and be like, how do we, now that this has stopped, when we reopen, we can structure this, we can completely restructure the way we do things. Whereas when it was up and running, it's a little tough to make a big change, So now, what we're doing now that we're open and we can, in Massachusetts, we can be open to some, to like 40% capacity, I think. But we've basically cut that even lower because that's not most people aren't going to be comfortable doing that really, honestly, even though we have a big space. So what we're doing, are you here? Your video cut out. Josh? This video just cut out. There you are. We're back.
All right, we're going to make sure that gets edited. So do you remember about where I cut out and left out? Or you probably saw the screen go. I tried to literally turn off somebody calling, and for some reason it changed over into the freaking call.
Yes. I think I kind of know where we were. So yeah, I was just going to say, I'm not sure. So the Massachusetts restrictions now are about 40% capacity. But we kind of made a decision that it's just not something I think our members would really be that like comfortable with. So we decided basically we're going to slot it into 14-foot slots. So everyone has their own little cube. They're doing their workout in that zone. And, if we have to carry equipment over to them, that's fine. We did buy some extra equipment to be able to actually, situate everybody whole. And, we basically have 9 people per session in the day. And we have 8 sessions each day. And people just have to sign up for those sessions and they get in their workout. And a lot of times, one of the feedback we've been getting from people is that in a lot of ways, it's actually, they like it a little bit more because they can still be around people. They still can interact, but it's a lot more efficient. Like they don't have to wait for any equipment. They kind of just have their zone. And like, if people need a squat rack and a bench, then we're making sure that they're in a slot with that. And if not, then they can have some open space and we can just give them what they need. But we generally have 2 coaches on for nine people. So it's a lot of personal attention and people are kind of, it's actually going pretty smoothly. And it's almost give us more structure that in a positive way that I think we maybe needed before.
It's good, man. I mean, I think it's important. I think opportunity to potentially try new things like you mentioned, or honestly think about some of the things that you're doing. And I think, and I used think like 3 times there, but nonetheless, the opportunity where in the beginning, like when everything was going on, I was like, I'm a chicken with my head cut off. I'm just running around like, what do I need to do? What do I need to know? What can we need to buy? Whatever. And then you get to like this calmer period where you're like, all right, well, this kind of sucks. We're not busy, but what do I do? And then you start to think about what this new normal, as we've heard so many times, is going to look like. And then you get to kind of incorporate it a little bit. So like for us, we went into more supportive materials, whether it's PDFs or kind of blog posts or email campaigns that follow patients with us after they initially activate their first visit with us. So just different informational stuff. We'll have an app coming out next month that'll kind of be supportive as well. So instead of this planned calendar, so to speak, they'll have everything in one place. We'll almost call it like an R2P WebMD. Just an opportunity for them to educate themselves more on some of the stuff that we talk about, where maybe we don't have 5 minutes every time to have that deep dive conversation, but on their own, they can read about it a little bit. So that was an area that we really dove into. But let's stop talking about COVID and let's dive into really like the assessment process, right? The transition from somebody potentially spending more time with us and spending more time with you. What are some things that you think are really just bedrocks of the assessment process? You can either segment it to particular populations or maybe just speak in generalities.
I think even if, kind of doesn't matter who we're getting in at some level, because the initial thing that we need to know is what are they really looking to get out of training? What is their real true goal? And whether that's, it's someone coming off rehab or it's just somebody coming in for performance or fitness, it's like, you got to know what they really want. It's not about what you want. It's about what they want. So then from there, if it's someone coming off a rehab, some kind of injury, we have to look at, we got to look at range of motion in certain positions for, particularly the positions that they're going to have to get in for their sport. Where are those? Where is their, how good are they absorbing force? How good is their general movement competency? We have some I think we've gotten away from being so standardized with some of our movement tests. I think, back, FMS was super popular for a while. And I think, what you get out of that is that they might be bad at these specific tests, but then sometimes they move fine. And then it's like, then you're trying to get them better at this test for the test, So I think we try to look at things a little bit more holistically as far as, look at a squat pattern, what's going on throughout the system, and what's probably the lowest hanging fruit that we can actually have some, imprint on? What can we actually change? What can we give them that's going to help this whole pattern, this whole system a little bit more? But I mean, so yeah, I mean, we're definitely evaluating joint range of motion and all that kind of stuff, and their abilities, judging what the demands are of their sport and kind of assessing them in those demands. But ultimately it's like movement competency, like how well is the squat, how well can they move through a squat pattern while maintaining their proximal stability? How well can they do a hinge pattern? How well can they jump and land? It's like, it's pretty, as much as I think people really make the assessment extremely complicated, but if you look at it as this whole system and you're looking at, what is affecting, if their knees are coming in on a squat, or when they land on a jump, it's like, it's not one thing. There's a lot of things that are going into play that are causing that. And you kind of have to look at, okay, what's going to be the biggest thing right now that I can help that's going to fix that system. And then you're thinking about exercise selection. What is the initial exercise that I'm going to give them, the first progression in this, big spectrum of exercises, big tools that you have. And you're going to get after it from there.
Yeah, I think, gosh, I could dive into so many different things you just touched on, but like the beginning, there's just a humility to like admitting sometimes that what you think is best is not best for somebody else.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do to rationalize it or defend it or this, that, and the other, if somebody else comes in and they've got a different perspective, or they have this emotional attachment to something else that made them feel good, or that they want to be able to do, or that they think works for them, you have to incorporate it somehow. So that like subjective, like fact gathering, the motivational interviewing, you could probably go down a bunch of different routes with things that you're doing during that time period, but you're trying to figure out how you can best align. And I always call it like the bridge concept. It's like, all right, after I get done with that, I know where I want to take this person. They've told me certain things which tell me that we're not in the same spot. So how do I compromise and meet them on the bridge somewhere to hopefully pull them a little bit towards me, but I might never pull them all the way to my side. So it's tough, right?
It's super difficult. And I think that is one difference between general public and an athlete. It's a very slight difference, because either way, you're really still just trying to like meet them at their goal. But, if they have this goal of getting better at basketball or whatever, I know the certain things, the qualities that they need to get better at for basketball. So those things need to be in the program, whereas for a general public, it's like, there aren't a whole lot of things usually that they need to be doing. It's kind of just, all right, if they want to get fit, they want to lose weight, they want to get their body fat lower. It's like, all right, like we can do that a lot of different ways. And the best way is probably going to be the way that they're into, that they're going to have some fun with and be bought in on and actually be consistent with their training. So it's getting out of that. That's kind of what I meant about some of the biases that we may have had. It's like, and I think we work hard to remove those in general, but I think we still, no matter what, you still hold on to some things, your lens, and trying to remove that and realize like, it's just not about you, and it does not matter what sometimes, I think people ask me about like program design sometimes and exercise selection. And a lot of times what I'll say is like, it's like with each thing that you're trying to get, there's kind of like your favorite exercise that you would do if you could just choose. And then there's what's going to be good for this person in this situation, given what they're good at, what they like, their general attitude, their attention to detail, a lot, their competence. It's like, there's a lot of factors that go into like what the exercise that you're actually going to pick for them. And it's based on a lot of variables, and it's not just going to be, all right, what's the best for performance, for force output? It's like, you can't look at it like that.
Especially when the person could go one of two ways, where they go, I hate this.
Yeah.
And then you have somebody that says that, and sometimes they buy into doing it because they're like, all right, I need to do what I hate.
Yeah.
Or you have the other person who goes, they're making me do something that I hate. I don't like this training. I don't like being here. I don't feel like he's listening to me. So it's very tough sometimes teasing out a phrase that you might hear a bunch of different ways and then figuring out how they're actually like feeling, because they might say the same thing, but it might mean very, very different things as a result with regards to buy-in.
And I think for a lot of young therapists and coaches, strength coaches, that's probably the weakest part from at the start, is being able to read people. And, you know, you might have all the knowledge in the world about strength and conditioning and physical therapy and still just not be able to deliver a really good program for somebody. And a lot of it's going to be based on that psychology of being able to read what they actually want, what they, you know, yeah, because some people just, they might complain the whole time, but they really want to be crushed. They want that workout to be hard, and they want the really difficult exercises that put them in pain, you know, good pain.
And they want to tell everybody how sore they are the next day.
Exactly.
You know, oh my God, the workout was amazing. I'm so sore.
Yeah. And then there are people that really just want to do different things, and they want more variety. They want whatever it is, you know, and you at some level, you're giving them a little bit of what they want and a little bit of what they need. And a lot of times the stuff you need, you're just masking it. And it's really, you know, you're telling them it's stuff they want and you're feeding it to them whenever you can, you know, all the things.
Spoon feeding a little bit, right? Yeah, you give me an opportunity, I'm shoving that spoon in your mouth real quick.
Exactly.
So getting back to like the assessment, and you know, what's funny, I was actually listening to an FMS podcast this morning. They were talking about wearables. Which I'm admittedly diving deep into the Apple Watch a little bit more with the new Apple Watch app. They've really upgraded the health app. But if we get back to like movement assessment or joint assessment, and we talk specifically about the FMS, I think what the FMS did for me was at least start to make me think in buckets or movements more with regards to things that I valued. So, you know, overhead squat, you know, maybe that matters for some people, maybe it doesn't matter for other, but like, can I hinge and can I squat? Like those are two bilateral patterns. And then, okay, can I dissociate and control myself in a closed chain pattern? So asymmetrical stance, can I, you know, do a split squat? Can I do a lateral squat? Okay, boom, check that bucket. Then if we go down the rabbit hole of like hurdle steps, single leg stability, I could do a wide variety of different things there with regards to variations. I mean, they're probably endless. And then you get into your core, reflexive core, or more of like this hardcore stability style core, range of motion, you know, alternating range of motion of the legs, alternating range of motion of the arms, all things that are like incredibly important. And I think you start to just come up with your own versions of these buckets, so to speak. I mean, any thoughts there?
I mean, 100%. I mean, when you're talking that out, it's like, you basically just said kind of what our eval is, you know, because it's like we try to, I mean, and I think it is a little different with therapy and fitness and performance. For the, you know, therapy, they're there for a certain reason, and you're evaluating a certain thing. So you kind of need to go through all these. There are specific tests that like we kind of need to look at, right? For certain, you know, certain things. With fitness, it's like, yeah, you have these things that are important, and you kind of want to see just where they're at with it. And you're looking at all the little details. So yeah, I mean, our eval is pretty damn basic because we know, first of all, somebody doesn't want to lay on their back. They're coming in here for fitness, and I'm saying, okay, now get on your back, and we're going to test all your ranges of motion. It's just like, that's not what they want. Like, it's not why they're here, you know? So yeah, we're going to have them squat. We're going to have them hinge. We're going to take a look at their overhead mobility. We'll take a look at their ankle mobility. Those are the kind of two definitely things that we'll isolate pretty quickly, just to kind of see where they're at there. Basic core stability, maybe a push-up, kind of see like that, like these very basic tests just to kind of see how their system works. And then we're taking them through a very basic workout, which is just part of the evaluation. We're just doing very basic movement patterns, and we're seeing how everything functions, you know, like how do their scapulas move? What is their pelvis rib cage control? Like, you know, it's just like, we're just looking at their competency, and then from that initial session, you know, when you kind of give them just all your buckets, your main movement patterns, and you taking them through it, it's pretty easy to kind of see where they're weak and where they're strong and where they need a lot of work, you know, just from looking at it from a whole system. Yeah.
I mean, I always think of a quote, crazy. I saw it on Under Armour headquarters wall, and it was, you know, think locally, but act globally. And it's like, well, we're thinking locally with regards to joint access. We're seeing how well people maybe control certain segments, And then eventually we're incorporating all of these things in, even at some point during the rehab process where, you know, some kind of sweat effect, so to speak, right? And being able to treat this individual and this organism as a whole human being instead of this just isolated segment has been shown to be beneficial and valuable. So for us, yeah, I mean, you're looking at early stage range of motion, local range of motion first. You're getting into positions with integrated joint patterns, right? So triple flexion, triple extension. I always think about whether or not they can do that. I mean,
and I mean, like with athletes, we're going to look at like gait mechanics and stuff like that. I mean, it's like, yeah, if they're an athlete, it's like, all right, we're going to have them some level of gait, some level of kind of running, jumping, and just locomotion basically. And then you're going to do your basic movement patterns that are just more kind of like, like split stance, bilateral, it's like, you're just going to kind of go through it all. I mean, I think that lost my train of thought a little bit.
No, but I mean, and if I jump in there, I mean, it's like some of this stuff, I try to always remind myself, if I have to sit there and split hairs on something, it's probably not what I need to focus on, right? Simple strategies and simple solutions are often the thing that works. So you brought up like low hanging fruit earlier, and not to like downplay like gait mechanics, but sometimes we get into this minute detail with gait mechanics sometimes where like, I wonder if I got all of our interns and I had them look at the same thing about whether or not they would see any of the same things that I'm seeing. And then there's other things where it's like, okay, we can tell whether or not somebody can hit knee to wall with like their fist in front of their toes, or we can tell whether or not somebody can go heel to butt, or there's a significant gross asymmetry with regards to what ranges of motion somebody can do, or a significant shift when they're squatting.
Well, I think that's like when we're talking, when we're teaching an intern, we're talking about that eval process. It's like you're really actually not looking for those little like, is this hip higher than that hip? You're looking for something glaring. You're looking for any kind of flag that's going to put in your head that, okay, I need to address this. This is something that I need to actually dive deeper on and do more detailed tests to see what the issue is. But if you're kind of looks normal and there's nothing, looks like pretty good. Oh, I see that they're like, all right, they don't have really good hip flexion in this acceleration. It's like, okay, most people don't have great, it's like, we're going to work on that. Like that's something we're going to do, but that doesn't throw red flags up for me. I don't need to like do some crazy little test and break it down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of our overall mindset.
Yeah. And I think for us, I mean, we've talked a lot about competencies right now. We've talked a lot about like joint access, getting into a pattern, say one time. What does this look like? Maybe we're doing it for subsequent attempts, but we're not really adding variables of tempo. We're not adding time under tension. We're not talking about external load. But if we get more into the capacity side of things, I think the thing that I always think of the most, at least with regards to adult gen pop, and it goes to a little discussion I was having on social media with somebody today, but how do you determine when to start implementing things involving a little bit more tempo and potentially even having adults leave the ground or run?
I mean, I think that's a pretty good question. I mean, I would say as far as we don't do a whole lot of running and jumping with our Gen Pop adults until like they're probably, and we don't have any, I'm not saying we have a timeline with it, but I would say for their initial program, we sort of make them earn a little bit of the ability to do that just from a basic level of strength.
I like it.
And, if we're going to have them jump, we're going to be doing things like snap downs for a whole month, some version, and we're going to intensify that as we go, but we got to teach them how to absorb force like that. If they're going to jump, they got to learn how to absorb force. So
decel, right? We got to be compliant first, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Got to learn how to yield. And, and so that's what we're going to work on and just kind of make sure they're good with that. So it's not that we don't care what they want. Say if they want to be jumping and running, it's like, we'll say, okay, that's great. We're going to do these initial exercises and we're going to kind of get you really strong in these. And then we'll, pretty soon when you're ready to go, we're going to let it go, but there's going to have to be this process of making them earn it a little bit. And that's going to be through, getting that yielding, getting that force absorption and teaching them that deceleration.
I like that, and this is not meant to throw anybody under the bus, and I hope this person is not listening to this podcast, but there was a time where we received a lot of calf pulls and unfortunately Achilles tears from an adult-focused fitness place nearby, and just hearing some people enter an environment, forget about things like the benefits of time under tension and being able to be compliant with the ground, learning how to get in positions of deceleration, and then getting into, stuff where you're talking about lower level, not even max effort. Like, okay, we're going to start leaving the ground or doing hopping exercises, but guess what? It's not going to be 100% and it's still going to be good for you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's still going to be really good. And there's still, I think the one thing people get scared of when you start to talk about like why we can't go to, why we can't just start going crazy with our jumping and our running or whatever. It's like they start to think, oh, like you're just going to limit me. They think that you're just cutting them off. And it's like, there's no limit. I don't care where we go. We can go crazy with this, but you're going to have to go through all the little rings of progression that are going to take us there, and it's not that we're going to limit anybody with their abilities or their performance. It's just, we have to make sure it's safe and you're actually going through all the things that are going to build you the ability and the resiliency to handle the stress that we're going to give you and that you want to do.
So here's a little curveball at the end for you. If I'm somebody and I haven't been working out much or at all throughout COVID, used to be a former athlete, what are some things that you think that I'm maybe keeping in mind? And what are some things you're doing differently for my programming in particular?
I mean, I think you spoke to tempos and stuff like that. I mean, I think that is tempos and ISOs are going to be like one of those, static work is going to be one of those like staples for any like general pop person that's going to first come in. I mean, you want building competency, you have to have them feel what you want them to feel. And when you're putting them with some time under tension, they're not going to be able to overload it, because to do it, to actually get that time, they're going to have to slow it down, and that's going to be a lot harder. And the odds are like they're going to learn those movement patterns. Their competency is going to increase if we can slow everything down for a little while and allow them that ability to learn how to maintain position and understand what positions we actually want them to be in and what muscles we want to be firing in certain positions. And I think that like, so it's like someone coming off of COVID who hasn't trained, we're going to give them that kind of stuff too, just to get them back in feeling what the muscles that they were feeling before and these positions that they were feeling before. And then we can start to ramp up the speed, ramp up the intensity as they get more comfortable with everything.
I tell you what, I used to laugh at ISOs probably in my younger years and go, oh, ISOs, those are so lower level. And honestly, they suck, right?
Yeah.
But I have been programming them so much more. I mean, starting at just the basics of isometrics, no change in muscular position, right? No change in joint position, which can be tremendous. I am developing submaximal tension for time. So it's like perfect. You're hitting the bottom of the pyramid. It's submaximal work. There's no quick stretch, quick contraction. I find myself doing them definitely a lot post-operatively, in addition to all of the literature supporting some of the things that we just mentioned with tendinopathy. But for somebody who's deconditioned, absolutely. Sometimes I'll throw those in as like an active recovery at the end where maybe there's less systemic load on that third exercise, so to speak. And they're able to go into recovery mode, but there's a heavy tissue component. Are you guys thinking about anything similar? Doing anything similar there? Or?
I think exactly what you were saying, that we found ourselves doing more of that stuff now than we ever have. And it is something we did not have in our program for at least as strongly for a while. It might be that kind of like ending block, but we're just trying to add a little bit of tension to the muscle. We're trying to get them to that sensation of really, really high firing, but it's not doing that much stress. It's not going to get them sore. So, I mean, there's just like, there's no negatives really, and there's just a lot of positives, you know? So it's just like, why would you not be having that? And then when you look at it from a pain perspective, I mean, it's the whole, it's everything, you know? It's like, if we can build some strength in that eccentric, we can build some strength in isometrics. I mean, it's pretty, you look at the research, it's pretty clear that that's kind of the place to go to start with people. And then you can slowly increase, you know, have velocity changes, slowly have intensity changes, and change angles, and have that be, you know, progressive in the more the advancement of the exercise and less about, you know, like, are you, you know, where are you going with the load?
Yeah. I mean, I think of something, I mean, I was just having a conversation too, like just 3-position isometrics, right? Let's start in the 25th percentile of the available range, 50, 75, 30 to 45 seconds. Great. You know, it's preparatory, and I think very fitting with kind of what you said. Like, you know, then you dive into eccentrics, and you have somebody also that maybe lacks body control and awareness, right? Let's talk about your young person that's going through puberty and they're growing. They're walking around like a baby giraffe or like olive oil. And then you've got your very deconditioned adult that mentally and psychologically thinks that they can jump in and go hard, but no, yeah, okay, this is going to feel really hard, but you're really not going to be doing nearly as much as you think with regards to something that's going to correlate with DOMs, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I honestly, and I think we found ourselves doing it more as prep exercises for some of our, like, you know, more higher level athletes as well, just for the reason of getting them into position and like having them own positions. Because I mean, you can be a really good athlete and still not be that good at owning certain positions, and because they, you know, they're good compensators. So, you know, I think we've been doing those more as prep exercises too, just to be able to get them where we want them to be, feel the right things. And, you know, generally there's going to be some level of it is advancing into their main exercises or their main, you know, whatever they're doing as their main power output. You know, if say they're doing squat as their heavier lift that day, yeah, we're going to do some isolations and in the bottom of a squat, or some eccentric slow tempo work to get them to feel everything, you know, and work on the little details, like, you know, rooting your feet, getting into a good core position. It's like all these things that some people kind of, when they're just rolling through, they kind of forget that those are really important details. But if you're not going to forget that when you're doing a 5-second eccentric, and, you know, it's like you feel those things. Exactly. Yeah. So we've found the value with also kind of more elite athletes too.
Yeah, no, I bet. And I mean, I'm thinking even like the young person who doesn't know how to squat, and you finally teach them how to, like, chest up, not an arched back, like your butt's back, knee, hip. Okay, we got it. Just stay right there. Don't move. Just don't move. Let me take a picture. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But Dylan, let's wrap with just a little bit of a time period where you're giving some young professionals advice. This could be strength coaches, maybe people driving into personal training, or maybe the PT, chiro, rehab world.
I think I have a couple of different things. I mean, I think the learning style, and I mean, you have to be, first of all, you have to be just aggressive with continuing education, you know, and you got to get it from, you got to figure out what the sources that you believe in are and dive deep. And I think, like, you know, keep an open mind. I think the worst thing you can do is shut your mind off of a certain way of thinking. I mean, I think one thing we pride ourselves at Flight is not, you know, we're not married to any camp of thought, you know, any way of thinking. We're just trying to do the best by our athletes and clients. So if you're thinking like that, then there's always going to be some kind of knowledge that you can take from any source, any information, you know? But so just being diligent with your continuing education and keeping an open mind to all the things you can learn from different sources. And then also another recommendation I would make is look outside of the fitness industry more. I started to do that in the last couple of years, and I definitely saw the benefits, and I didn't do it at all early in my career. You know, you're thinking about just diving in on the physiology and exercise, all the exercise science stuff and the training. And then you forget that, like, you know, there's so much of it is psychology, so much of it is business, and you should get out of the world for some of that knowledge. And it's going to be extremely beneficial for you becoming a better coach.
I agree. And for me, like, as a business owner, I have learned so much more about business from other industries than just the healthcare industry. And part of that is I think that just the healthcare industry almost views people as just like a commodity. And it's like, hey, we get to function on these very dated business practices. You need us. Yeah, come see us, you know? So we've really been just trying to focus on looking at what a lot of the other trendsetters are doing in other industries and how we can model things like that and take them into the healthcare world. So I really appreciate that perspective. And then just the ability to learn from so many different people and the choice to continue to learn, because man, if you wouldn't know it, out on social media, man, everybody is an absolute expert on everything. And sometimes I sit there and I go, man, how are these people so intelligent about everything? But we all know where that's rooted in and how productive that might be. But nonetheless, Dylan, I appreciate your time. Want to give you, I know I gave you another opportunity in an earlier podcast where you were jointly with Alex, a team member of yours at Flight. But remind everybody again about where they can connect with you individually, maybe even giving them an opportunity to reach out for potential mentorship or questions about either the field or Flight in particular.
Yeah, definitely. So my personal Instagram is Dylan_FPF. And yeah, I mean, I welcome anybody DM me, reach out, and be willing to talk about just any training, business stuff. We actually also have our internship opening in December. So if anybody's interested in that, and we have a new class coming in, and we're looking for people to apply. So you can just reach out on Instagram, or you can email us at flightperformanceandfitness@gmail.com.
Awesome. Dylan, appreciate your time today. Looking forward to seeing you all in a couple weeks.
Gosh, thanks a lot. I can't wait. See you soon.